What's up, guys? Tommy Kerrigan with Tommy Untamed. We've got an incredible guest today. Show starts right now. Brigadier General Dr. Robert S. Spalding III, former B-2 Spirit pilot, which is the coolest plane to have ever existed, and author of Stealth War, as well as War Without Rules. Your Twitter's in the description for anybody that doesn't know you, but I doubt anyone in my audience doesn't know who you are. You were in the National Security Council, and they didn't like you raising alarms about China's domination of the 5G market through their Belt and Road Initiative. And I believe now you have a pretty cool company about EMP hardened communications. So I don't butcher it any further. General Spalding, please introduce yourself to everybody.
Thank you. It's great to be back. I spent most of my 30 years in the Air Force flying B-2s, but I had a good opportunity to live in China. That got me to the White House to work on the national security strategy. And of course, I worked on a report on 5G that got leaked to the media. I started a technology company after I retired from the Air Force, focused on secure and survivable communications for the military, but also for the American people. So power, water, those things that we find critical for life. Telecommunications, ability to call first responders, to get medical help, to do financial transactions, all the things that might go away if, say, a giant balloon with an EMP device floats over our country and detonates. That's what our company builds, and we're committed to supporting not just the American people, but any free society that wants the ability to have survivable communications. And the good thing about our infrastructure is we found that your smartphone will survive something like an EMP just fine. It just doesn't have any infrastructure to connect to. So we give it that infrastructure to connect to ensure that you always stay connected.
Yes, sir. And I believe last night, for everybody listening, today is February 20th. I believe last night Oakland lost power, and kind of pression, as well as the multiple balloon incursions. And I think there was another balloon this morning spotted off the coast of California. Is there any more of a symbolic representation of asymmetric warfare and unrestricted warfare than an F-22 shooting down a balloon?
Well, I think what's symbolic is the fact that this giant balloon, essentially floats over the entirety of our country, and just demonstrates, what the Chinese Communist Party seek to do, which is essentially show the world that we're weak and feckless, and that they are on the rise. And the fact that they can do this is one of the really important messages that they tried to portray with this. It's no accident that it was coming, right about the time that Blinken was supposed to be in China for a one-on-one meeting. So as you can imagine, it was a very important political and psychological message to the world. We took it as an intelligence collection mission, which is, certainly part of it, but that was not the main effort or thrust of why they sent that balloon over when they did.
What I do like about War Without Rules is that you offer a solution. It's not doom and gloom. And I've often said it's nothing special to point out what's wrong in your life, right? You can look in the mirror and say, I'm too fat and my bathroom's dirty. Congratulations, you've diagnosed it. And that is the first step. But to actually start taking steps, you have to first identify what you can do. And towards the end of the book, and I don't think people would expect, a general like yourself to take, is to actually take $100 billion from the defense budget and put it into, as you said, Eisenhower's butter, the very things, the very fire on which the flame of the defense industry can come out of is the historical behemoth the United States is. And it's been that way because we lead technology, or have historically led technology, academics, and innovation. Could you maybe go into that a little more? Because it's so easy to say, oh, we're just going to go to war with China. And as you pointed out, no, we've been at war with China. But it's not, as you said, it's not flying 6,000 miles in a stealth bomber when they can reach you in your living room. What their core engine is what we were 70 years ago. constantly building up the homeland, innovation, giving scholarships to people that want to go pursue something. So you don't have a potential genius, left on the side flipping burgers when he could be innovating quantum computing. Could you maybe touch on that specifically, what we can do to enhance our survivability against the Chinese?
Certainly. The one of the things that people don't recognize about the manufacturing base of a country is that it provides a whole host of advantages that the Chinese Communist Party now seek to take advantage of. One of the things, and one that's not often talked about, is just the capacity that it has to generate jobs in communities. And so for each manufacturing job, there's typically 4 other jobs in the community. So when you lose a manufacturing job, you lose a significant presence within the community, because those manufacturing employees are going out and they're using, their barber shops, gas stations, stores, convenience stores, the department stores, grocery stores. They're using paint, paint stores where, they're using, construction supply stores, because they're living their lives. And in living their lives, each of these manufacturing employees, is essentially generating the need for these services and goods that in turn employs other employees within the community. So when you think about, losing tens of thousands of manufacturing jobs, or millions in the case of the United States, when we created this economic pact with China and moved our manufacturing to China, it literally destroyed tens of thousands of communities in the United States. So just that piece, the jobs lost, is a significant cultural, social, political blow to the confidence of the United States. And what that means is, typically the United States has been an immigrant society, and typically those immigrants, when they come to the United States, they're fleeing oppression, they're fleeing tyranny, they're looking for economic opportunity, they're looking for freedom. And they find that economic opportunity, or have found it, in these communities, these small communities where they have manufacturing facilities. So they come and they maybe either serve, working in a manufacturing job, or they work in one of the jobs that supports the manufacturing industry. So that ends up being the inspiration of the United States. It's not just the freedom, it's also the economic opportunity. So when you take away the manufacturing base, you take away the inspiration that United States represents. It no longer do emerging market citizens of emerging market economies, or people that are fleeing tyranny or want to flee tyranny, it doesn't look as good to come to the United States anymore, because you don't have the economic opportunity. Okay, so that's number one. It destroys the confidence in the institutions of the West, because it destroys the confidence in the United States to provide economic opportunity for its people. So that in and of itself is bad enough. But then, what does the manufacturing base represent? Well, it represents the ability for the country to defend itself. So think of things like in World War II, where Ford and General Motors are making cars. Then all of a sudden they're making tanks and bombers to support the war effort. If those manufacturing facilities don't exist, and tens of thousands of other ones like them in various other pieces that support the war material, and instead you're importing Chinese goods to support your war effort, then if for some reason that adversary becomes your adversary, how are you going to support the war effort? There's not going to be factories that you can convert from making peacetime goods to making wartime goods. It's just something you can't invent overnight. So it ends up becoming the seed corn for how a nation defends itself. And then finally, innovation. Where does innovation come from? Well, people think that innovation comes from Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley came from the Cold War, the space programs, all of the Department of Defense money that was invested for the competition with the Soviet Union. But more importantly, innovation comes from the manufacturing process itself. In fact, 70% of innovation comes from the manufacturing process. So think of things like companies like TSMC, which is a chip company. It is the best chip company in Taiwan, or in the world. It is in Taiwan. Now, they have essentially grown their sophistication, their capability over decades of investing in the ability to manufacture chips. So a lot of people design chips. In fact, companies like Qualcomm design chips. But where are those chips manufactured? The ability to manufacture those chips, to get the quality that you're trying to get, to actually be able to put that out as a product, takes enormous work in terms of innovation. So 70% of the innovation process comes out of that. When you take that manufacturing capability away, you take away that pathway to most of where innovation comes from. So, whether it be the confidence of your society, or whether it be the ability to support yourself during a conflict, or the ability to just innovate, we have essentially allowed, through this relationship with China, the decimation of our country in a variety of ways.
Brilliant answer. In your opinion, because towards the end of the book you talk about the general feeling put out into the public consciousness of the globe is that China's falling. It's a paper dragon. It can't go on forever. The ghost cities. And that could very well be true. But you also discussed that in their doctrine, this would be an illusion. It's old as time is to look weak when you're strong. And then your chapters on multiplication and addition of warfare. Are we, and this is pure speculation, but are we seeing an escalation of that with China now openly talking about supporting Russia, as well as their continuing economic warfare on us? I would imagine not just air operations, but their psychological operations. And, are we seeing sabotage at home through our own infrastructure? It might very well just be failing, but it seems a little coincidental. Is this them getting ready to pounce after being in a spring position for decades?
Well, I think if you notice, after it's really interesting, after the 20th Party Congress, they relaxed all the zero COVID rules and they went on this charm offensive with the West. So I do think that the Chinese Communist Party recognizes that it needs to continue to bleed the West for technology, talent, and capital, and that it can't be too harsh with the West because it needs the technology, talent, and in particular capital. And capital has been racing into China since they relaxed the zero COVID rules to the tune of billions of dollars. So they need this capital to continue to come into China. At what point will China act on its promise to take back Taiwan? I think this is anybody's guess. I believed that the West was beginning to recognize that China, was doing these things and slowly would begin to cut China off. But if you look at even the latest, effort by the Biden administration to engage with China, you see, you recognize the United States corporations, United States financial institutions putting pressure on the administration to, engage with China for the purpose of reducing the tension so that they can continue to pour technology, talent, and capital into China because they see that as, the market going forward. Now, this is the problem. And so, where are we in the whole evolution of China's, change from, essentially saying one thing and doing another? In other words, saying that they're going to be, great for globalization, but in actuality, helping destroy it, but not being militarily aggressive. How long will that last? Well, I think, it will last just as long as Xi Jinping decides that they are ready to, essentially take a significant blow to their economy by the cutting off of technology, talent, and capital to China, because they know when they invade China, that will end. So there's no more, charm offensive that's going to work to, get the West to voluntarily to continue to allow, our financial institutions to invest in China. That's going to be the end of it. And so I think they're making an assessment on almost a daily basis. Where are we in the timeline for being able to successfully not only take Taiwan, but sustain the economic isolation that's going to come afterwards? And if we can leverage our relationships through the Belt and Road Initiative with those nations, we can get the resources we want. They can be the markets we want. We have the ability to do currency swaps or essentially use the renminbi, because we're going to be cut off completely from the dollar. If we can do all those things and take Taiwan, then today is the day. And I think that's the assessment that they're making on a near constant basis. We have no insight into understanding when they say, okay, the conditions are right for us to invade Taiwan. But I suspect, just like it was during the Korean War, that when the Chinese move, we're going to be completely caught off guard. It's not going to be like Russia's invasion of Ukraine, when you could see it coming for a mile. We just chose not to, not to believe that Putin would invade. In their case, I think it's going to come very quickly. We're not going to be ready for it. And overnight, it's going to be a new world, because, not only will we have economic isolation of China, but it's going to be a severe economic impact to the United States, because we'll have lost billions and billions of retirees, retirement funds, because they'll have been invested in China and lost when this economic isolation is implemented.
So they're stockpiling the bunker, because they know once they start and the vault door closes, they have to have enough to survive. And as you point out, not China, the Communist Chinese Party, the Communist Party of China, it's for them to survive. It's not for their people. It is very different. And as you point out, you have nothing but love for the Chinese people. They are controlled by a tyrannical, psychopathic elite that are looking only to continue their power. It is power is the sake of power. So they're going to get very vicious with that. And you had a great line in the book where you're like, all right, so the idea is, if we let them become an open society, welcome them into the global marketplace, that's all the cool kids on the block letting the new weird kid come in. Yeah, all right. Once they kind of get in they'll chill out once they get some nice TVs and cars and McDonald's. And then you go, and then everyone starts to realize the new kid's a sociopath. We all knew that kid in like middle school. You have him come hang out and he wants to kill animals. And you're like, this isn't good. Is that something that is maybe an unforeseen and certainly not something to rely on because it's too speculative, but is that something that is on our side as the world kind of wakes up to, hey man, they're insane and they will do anything. It is unrestricted warfare. There is nothing off the table. What we saw them doing with COVID and hiding it and actively perpetuating its spread, well, fear-mongering us, and again, as you said, buy off the researchers to make a BS study, have the bought off media members tout that study, and then have bots on social media amplify that. Creates an echo chamber. Next thing you know, we're all shut down. You're a terrible person who wants to kill grandma if you dare go to work, and they're just going along as business as usual. Is that something that, or is it too little too late? Will the world wake up when they're closing the vault doors and they have all the food and guns?
Well, every time I think that, this time, the Chinese Communist Party has gone too far. They float a balloon over the top of the United States, giant surveillance balloon.
Yeah.
There's a big FU to America, right over the top of the United States. And okay, this time we're going to wake up. But they have this incredible ability to push and then back off, push and back off. And the way that they do it is they push farther and then they back off, not to the point they were, but to a new point that's even, farther than they were before. And so, and the capacity for, Americans and the rest of the people in the free world to forget and forgive, I think is the thing that's astonished me most. I mean, they keep moving closer and closer and closer and closer. And then they back off and they go closer. And we just don't, we never recognize it. And I think this is the brilliance, by the way, of the Chinese Communist Party. And it's a great tragedy of American society, is that unless you're, punching us in the face, we're not going to really respond. And I think it's to our own detriment. And they really have our number. They really understand how to manipulate our political system, the American people in ways that we're just not prepared to respond to. So, you know, while I do put forth recommendations at the end of my book, I also have to credibly respect the fact that they could essentially wipe us out without firing a shot, just because we're so willing to forgive and forget everything that happens, to the point where, and now with globalization and the internet, the ability to influence social, political, economic, cultural behavior at the individual level, you can begin to convince people of just about anything. And because we don't recognize that necessarily the same as, in Marines invading our coastline. If Marines invade our coastline, okay, we recognize that as an attack, but we don't recognize, when our kid comes home from college and starts spouting Chinese propaganda, or they're watching TikTok videos and they start, valuing things that are completely anathema to, what it means to be an American. We don't see that as or even fentanyl poisonings.
Mhm.
None of these are seen as attacks. They're kind of seen as, something that is just a manifestation of society. Well, I think that's the problem. They are so effective at what they do, and we are so willing to forgive and forget each and every time.
Yeah, I mean, if I started if I started today just camping out a mile from the White House, and then every day just move my tent forward 20 feet, and then I move back 10, and then move forward 20 feet and back 10. Eventually I get up to the fence and there's a bunch of hubbub, but I go 20 feet past the fence and then I go, hey guys, I'm just right back. Tell me how long that works out before I get a 50 cal round through my sternum. That's what they're
Well, I mean,
doing.
he goes right up to the fence, but in that case, it's a much more where the lines exist. When you're talking about indoctrinating or influencing our kids, there's no fence. There's literally no fence around the internet. It comes right up to your own living room, and so I think it's a good analogy, except it just doesn't exist in other aspects of life, and that's the real beauty of my book War Without Rules, because I talk about, hey, here's what the guys said. Read their own words. This is what's going to allow me. It's going to allow me to basically politically indoctrinate your society, use your own economy against you, because you've given us this capability. I mean, it's like you've captured the Germans' Enigma machine, and you're reading all their messages. It's like we have the ability now to control you because of the tools you gave us, and you think that you through those tools you're gonna somehow liberate the world. In reality, we're going to use those tools to enslave you, and that's what they've done.
And the analogy is just that, is they figured out how to remove the fence and how to make it not look like a guy walking towards the commander in chief. Because if you did do that, that's exactly what would happen. You would be blown to pieces. But that is what they're doing. And I think, as you said in the opening lines of Stealth War, is it's a beautiful, elegant game. Like, you have to respect them. They are masterful. They're absolutely master. It's like there's like some fish I remember learning about in biology in college, that this one fish would be able to mate with all the females because it was basically like a gay fish. It had like these huge bright colors. It didn't go out and defend like the area where they lived. It would just hang out with the females all day, and then, no pun intended, slip in. It had the most offspring. And you look at it and you go, well, the fittest fish is clearly the one with the scales and it's big. Yeah, on paper, sure. We're looking at it as, well, we have all the bombers. Fitness is defined by how many offspring do they successfully raise. That one's the most fit. They're the most fit right now. It looks like we are, because we're Fortress America, 2 oceans, 2 mountain ranges. Yeah, I don't know. And I guess this last question, I know I got to let you run, is it's almost philosophical. Nature has no preference. If they win, are we watching the most fit society? Was democracy a fun experiment? And then do they win? You might say, well, they're evil. Nature doesn't care. Is that what we're watching? Are we watching a showdown of which system is the most fit? And it's a depressing question.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you look at if you characterize the human history into two epochs, one prior to the internet, one after the internet, maybe our method of society was best prior to the internet, and then maybe they recognize that the internet gives the ability for a few to control the many, and they have stumbled onto something. I think the internet changes the world in ways that democracy is not ready for, and maybe that gives them the leg up. Maybe then we're going to have to wait for some other invention. Maybe it's AI. I don't know, but I mean, right now they seem to have the understanding of technology, where it's going, and how to use that to control their population and to control the narrative around the world. So, yeah, maybe the internet was the thing that caused the world to say, okay, we're moving from this area of liberal democracy as the best way to orient ourselves, and maybe authoritarianism is the future. And who knows?
Yeah, and like you said, maybe there's some other waterfall we're approaching, AI or Neuralink. You upload your, you can feel what other people are feeling or see, or just, I mean, it'll be as undescribable to us as the internet is to somebody 100 years ago, and that might shift it to some other system. I'll let you go. Very last question though. Are you kind of jealous of the B-21 Raider? Do you wish you
Oh, I
could
am. I
kind
mean, I would love to fly that airplane. When I went in, the B-2 was the new thing.
Yeah.
So I think every pilot likes to fly. Has an interest to fly the newest and latest thing, and I think the B-21 is that thing. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I graduated the University of Georgia in 2013, and there is a little jealousy watching him win the championship 2 years in a row. And I'm like, God, that party looks fun. If just one more weekend. But yeah, so General Spalding, thank you for your time, sir. Thank you for your brilliant answers. Unfortunately, you are too smart to run for office. I wish you would, but I think not to do that. But I mean, man, I would do anything I could to get you in there. Guys, go grab the book, Stealth War and War Without Rules. They're in the description, as well as your Twitter and your website. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for everything you do, and thank you for your brilliant books.
Thank you.
God bless America, everybody. Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food, 72 servings per pail, 25 years shelf life. I've had the owner, Clayton, on the show before. He's a God-fearing, America-loving patriot. Get one of these, get a couple of them, throw them in your basement. It's good to have it, not need it, than to need it and not have it. If you don't want to do that, you can get their seeds. You can plant your own garden, so you don't even have to keep buying them. You can just get the goods and start your own, or you can even get freeze-dried fruits and vegetables like bananas, apples, strawberries, and raspberries. They support the show. It's an honest product. It's a good safety measure to have, and they keep my show free for you. So I'd implore you guys to please go to heavensharvest.com, use the link in the description, promo code TPC. Axios Fitness Coaching is a premium resource for holistic strength and conditioning services. Axios is best known for the Training Club, capital T, capital C, an exclusive community that prioritizes accountability, technique, diet, and nutrition. Everything you need to do to take action against the decay of the modern world. Whether you're looking to improve your physique, build strength, or just take care of your health and fitness, Axios will provide you with a solution that is effective and simple to execute. All you need to do is complete the intake survey, and you can see if you're a good candidate for the training club or any other of the services. And it's going to sponsor the show. So, one company falls off, another one arises. So if you guys like the show, you want to work out, throw the show a couple shekels, go take the survey. Thank you so much, guys.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments. A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a Blue Room soon. www.blueroom.com